You saw who he was, and he wants to thank you for that. You had no closure whatsoever. And to this day, you've suffered. And I feel that I took a piece of her with me when I died. He says to me, Matt, I'm here to take this away. So first of all, the soul is coming through, and I kept seeing that they passed of an overdose here in the physical world. So who was that to you?
My brother-in-law.
Okay, so please know that first of all, he's here. And are you all connected to him?
We're all sisters.
So that was your child's father that had passed away, correct?
Yeah.
This is a really tough reading to do because he's coming through, and the moment I'm connecting with him, he says to me, Matt, I've been trying to reach her in the worst way. You know, what's really tough is that when I'm connecting with him, he truly did love you here in this world. But he says to me, Matt, I ruined my life. I ruined my life. I ruined my life. And he keeps saying that to me. You know, I have to be honest with you. When I'm looking at all of the things, right? He's looking back on his life and he keeps saying to me, I can't believe I did this to myself. I can't believe I did this to myself. What's really hard is that he was not faithful to you here in this world, he tells me, when he was here. He says to me, Matt, I cheated on her. He says, I talked to other people. He says, and at the same time, he says, I strung her along. He says, and I don't know what I was thinking. He says, because there was nobody else in my life that could be or compare to the woman that she was, both to me and my child. What he's also showing me is something that's really upsetting me. I just saw a pregnancy test that's here when I'm connecting. So that being said, did somebody else think that they were pregnant with his child?
He had another girl had a baby from him, and a little bit before he passed, she had him.
He tells me, because he showed me the pregnancy test before he died. And he says to me, Matt, I knew about this and he hid this from you. He didn't know how to tell you in the beginning, he shows me. Because he tells me that there was a point where the two of you were planning on getting back together, that you were working on your relationship. And then all of a sudden you're finding out that he's having a child with somebody else. And you know what's really screwed up about this? Is that this girl who was involved with him, she basically gave him an ultimatum and basically was like, either you're gonna tell her or I'm gonna tell her. I gotta be honest. He says, I did drugs to escape my life. I did drugs, he says, and I had these addictions by choice because I couldn't be a man and I couldn't face all of these problems and all of this destruction that I caused within my life. He tells me that he had police issues here in this world. He tells me that there was bill issues here in this world, where there was a problem with paying bills. And I see him like running away from like debts and different things. He says, and Matt, he says, my whole life, he says, if there was the right option, the right option, the right option, the wrong option, I would go for the wrong option. He says, that's just who I was. He says, and I worked really hard, he says, at screwing up my life. To the point where he tells me when he died, it's like he had no emotion. He says to me that when he died, he had taken so many drugs, he was on so many different things that he didn't even know who he was. But you know what's so sad? Is that he says to me that you saw the real him. You saw who he was, and he wants to thank you for that. And not only did you see who he was, but you don't tell your kids everything about him. You tell them about the man that you knew, the man that you loved, and the man that you saw without the addictions. Do you understand that? Yeah. So know that he's thanking you for that. He says, and you know what's really sad, Matt? She has to have conversations that I couldn't hear in this world. He tells me that you always tell his kids how much that their dad loved them, how much that their dad adored them. But the hard part is that he didn't get the chance to tell them this here in this world when he was alive. And that's the hard part. So know that what he just said to me is this. He says, Matt, you need to tell her that I made really bad decisions in my life. I made all the wrong decisions, but God gave me you. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. So he says to me this, that because of that child that he had with this other person, you go back and you say, oh my God, but was I stupid? Did he really love me? Did he even care about me? Why would he do all of this? He said, I did love you. He says, but I let other things come into my life. And those other things were drugs. So what's really hard is he shows me that you fought really hard for this relationship. You fought really hard to love him, for him to love his kids, for him to spend time with you. And you fought hard to make him be part of your family. But the one thing is that he tells me is, you were the only one that was fighting. I never gave our relationship or our family a fair shot. And I never fought for myself. So you need to hear these words today because you've been holding on to this for so many years. And he says to me, Matt, she is a tank. She doesn't cry. She doesn't get emotional. He tells me that you suck it up, you hold it in, and you do what you need to do for your kids and your family. But he says to me, you shouldn't have to hold on to that hurt pain and distrust that I left you with. He says that what's really hard, when he died, you were left without knowing any closure. You had no closure whatsoever. And to this day, you've suffered. He says to me, Matt, I'm here to take this away. He says, because she's a beautiful person. He says, and I feel that I took a piece of her with me when I died. So I'm really hoping that this helps you to heal today. And I know that you were not expecting him to come through. I know that you were not expecting to hear from him. And I know that you're so mad at him because he tells me. But you have every right to be. And
I don't feel him. I don't dream about him or anything.
Just because you don't dream about him, just because you don't feel him, doesn't mean that he's not there. It's actually the opposite. You know, sometimes when we're going through grief, when we're mad at a person, we're upset with a person, right? We block ourselves. When we block out the memory of that person because we're mad and we're upset and we're angry, we block out the signs. We block out the ways for that person to reach us as well. And that's the reason why he's coming through right now, to let you know that he's sorry, to let you know that he's there and with you. And even though you don't feel him, he is silently by your side and he is watching over you always.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
being here, right? I'm gonna leave you with that.